Hi, I'm Brian Carroll, equipping pastor at Cypress Bible Church, and today I'd like to talk about the COVID-19 pivot. And that's not a dance sensation that's sweeping the nation, but at least I don't believe that it is. But basically, what I'm referring to by the COVID-19 pivot is the fact that every single one of us have had to change direction from what we thought we were going to be doing. Even here at Cypress Bible Church, our key ideas are gather, grow, and go. And for gather, it was we came together to worship together. Now we're worshiping in our own homes. Grow was a place where groups would come together to meet together, usually on campus or in people's homes. And now we can't meet in people's homes, or we can't gather together here, so we're meeting online through virtual connections. Go, we typically would do things to reach the people across the street and across the world. Well, now we can't travel across the world, and we can't go as a group into meeting with other people at the right time. So all three of those things, we've had to figure out new ways to reach people. Well, there was a product that was developed in the 1930s, and it's Kotal wall cleaner. And this product was designed to clean the soot off of walls when you used coal as a fuel for heat in your home. And basically by the 1950s, it was obsolete. Coal was no longer the primary source of fuel. It was natural gas. And wallpaper was no longer the flat textured wallpaper, but had become vinyl, so it was much easier to clean. So this product, which had been high in need prior to that time, was no longer needed. The company faced the prospect of bankruptcy. But through some ingenuity and through some change and some unusual circumstances, I encourage you to look that up on the history of it. It became a product that we're all very familiar with today, Play-Doh. See, it was this difficult journey with Kotal which opened the door for Play-Doh. And Play-Doh is probably a product that is known all over the world today. It looks a little bit more like this, is what we're familiar with it as. But it's, of course, a colored clay that children all over play with and develop with as a kind of a preschool staple. I wonder if the same thing can be true for us, is sometimes what we think of all the difficult things we're going through and all the changes we're having to make and the hardships are with those. And I believe there are lots of them. There's lots of suffering, there's lots of struggle, there's lots of difficulty. So I don't want to minimize that at all. But is it possible that God has an opportunity in the midst of that he wants us to tap into? Is it possible that he is about something so much bigger than our limited perspective allows us to see right here in the present? And there is a passage in Hebrews 11 that's very close to me and my wife's heart, and it really is about the person named Abraham. God had an encounter with Abraham, and he promised him, an elderly man and an elderly woman, he promised them that they were going to have descendants more numerous than the stars in the sky, more numerous than the sand on the beach, and that they were going to be given a land. And all those things probably seem so far off that Abraham probably had a hard time embracing them, but he trusted God, was faithful to follow through, and he trusted with faith. And it says in Hebrews 11:8, by faith Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. By faith he made his home in the promised land, like a stranger in a foreign country. He lived in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, who were his descendants, who were heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. God had promised that to him. By faith, Abraham, even though he was past age, and Sarah herself was barren, was enabled to become a father because he considered him, God, faithful who had made the promise. And so from this one man, and he was as good as dead, that's what the scripture says, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and as countless as the sand on the seashore. Now, you see, Liz and I, when we heard that a sermon preached on that passage, that was when I felt like God was calling me to a new place, a new direction. And that's ultimately how I ended up here as a pastor over almost 20 years ago. But it began to make me realize and think that all kinds of things have happened that actually could be opportunities if we would just look at them that way. I believe we need to grieve the losses. They're great. But at the same time, they may open doors of opportunities that we have no idea what may be on the other side. And so as I think about just the different losses that people have experienced that I'm aware of, we've had parents are homeschooling their kids in ways that they never anticipated being a homeschooler. Maybe there's relationship healing and development that'll happen that they couldn't anticipate. People are losing jobs. Who knows how God will redirect them in other ways? People are put on furlough, so they have to learn to live with less financial resources. Maybe there's some blessing in the midst of that. Retirement accounts value is decreased. Maybe that will cause us to trust God more and trust our own savings less. Not to say that savings is not important. I believe it's very important. Also, we've seen weddings. I was invited to a wedding, which was a large group celebration supposed to be. In the end, it became an intimate family gathering. Maybe there's something that God has even in the midst of that. Funerals that usually are large events now become small groups of just the intimate family. So all kinds of changes are happening. But my encouragement to you is to begin to say, God, what may be in the midst of that somehow will accomplish something so much bigger than I could ever imagine or think. And again, I understand the journey is hard. I'm in that journey with you too. I've had lots of losses, but I would encourage you to join me and ask God to help us to see what are the possible ways that he's at work in us. And we, like Abraham, can we say, God, I'm going to trust and walk by faith. I encourage you to list all those items with which you've had to pivot in those areas where you have had losses, and to say, God, is there a possible blessing? Is there a possible redirection? Is there a possible way you want to use this that will benefit the kingdom? Lord, help me to be receptive to the work that you want to do in and through my life. I encourage you to join me in praying that prayer. I'm not saying it's an easy prayer to pray, but I do believe it is one that really is one of future direction and hope, that really we look forward to the hope that God has promised us that is way beyond this earth. It is when we get to spend eternity with him in heaven forever. And so I encourage you today to think about what are the possibilities of ways that God can use this very difficult time in a powerful way in your own life. May God's grace be very apparent to you today.